Welcome to the Permission Slip podcast, where I, empowerment coach, mindset expert, and holistic nutritionist Carmen share with you the tools, conversations, and resources you need to write your own permission slip, take massive action, and become obsessed with your own life. Let's get started.
Everyone, and welcome back to the Permission Slip podcast. So first, I want to say thank you for your patience for these episodes coming back to you because I took a little summer vacay. Well, actually, it was more like a little sabbatical, and I went by myself to Tulum. I really started writing my book that I'm really focused on, as I shared with you in the last episode, that was one of the things that I was really willing to get curious around, was writing and being creative and how I can really tap into that potential. So now we are back with the podcast, and I'm super excited to talk to you about today how to raise your standards. Now, why is this important? This is important because your standards are like the roadmap that you can follow no matter your external circumstances. No matter your external circumstances that cause a feeling inside of you, if you have strong standards that are tied to your values and beliefs, you can follow your roadmap and you're going to get to where you're going, to where God is calling you to, so much faster because you have these standards. So before we dive into this today, I want to just mention the last episode. So if you didn't listen to the last episode, that was the 4 stages of personal growth. That was very, very, very enlightening, because what I talked about in there was the 4 stages are: you have to be willing, you have to have radical self-honesty, and then you have to start by curiously implementing new things into your life and collecting evidence and seeing what works for you. And then the final stage is you have to personally integrate what worked for you and do it your way. Now, most people, they can be willing, and most people, they can start getting that radical self-honesty and self-awareness. They may be calling themselves out on their own BS. They may be understanding why they're acting or behaving or thinking or maybe not taking action in certain ways, but then they don't actually move into those next stages of implementation and integration. So if you haven't listened to that episode, please, I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode and really just think about where you're at. Now, I want you to know that there's no right or wrong here. There's no good or bad. There's no black or white. It all just is. You know, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with life. It just is. And where we're at right now is perfect. It's just up to us to create a new vision and be radically self-honest and start taking action towards the area we're being called to in our lives. And that's what we're going to talk about today, raising our standards. And again, raising our standards is so important, because if you want to have growth in your life, if you want to get to that next stage of relationships, of health, of business, of career, of spirituality, of just understanding yourself and self-love and self-trust a little bit more, we must raise our standards. So I have 4 steps for you on how to raise your standards. Now we know what the standards are and why they are so freaking important. So the first step is to create a vision for your life that's exciting. Something that you can get behind. It's not just waking up each and every day and going through the motions and going on the treadmill of life and checking the boxes off on a goal list of just a list of goals that you already know that you're going to accomplish, that don't challenge you or don't push you to be a better version of yourself. It's creating a compelling vision that you're enthusiastic and excited when you wake up each and every day, and a vision that even in challenging times you can believe for, and you can be pulled by in those moments when you just kind of want to throw in the towel. So you need to get very, very clear on that vision. And the vision that I would start with is for yourself. Because oftentimes we start for visions for our career or our business or other people, and we forget to turn the mirror back on ourselves. Now, this is something that we dive into in Flow Academy, because I see this happen time and time again. People will get to a level of success in their life, and then they get stuck or they go backwards And it doesn't feel very good. And the primary reason that they do this is because they haven't turned the mirror back on themselves and done the inner work and gotten to know themselves and uncovered their limiting beliefs and uncovered their strengths and uncovered their true gifts that God has given them to be able to create this compelling vision for their life. So here's where I want you to start is a highest vision for yourself. I want you to think about what would be like your dream day. What would that be like? When would you wake up? Where would you be? How would you feel? What would you do? What would your morning be like? How would you take care of yourself? How would you take care of others? How would you get ready? What would you wear? What would it look like when you start your day? Who would you surround yourself with? What would you be doing? At the end of your day, how do you wrap it up? How do you feel throughout the day? Who are you with? What are you doing? How does it feel to you? Write out a clear vision of your highest self. Who is she? How does she dress? How does she speak? Where does she go? Who is she around? What is happening? And you see from this vision, something really beautiful happens. So you see, when you create this compelling, enthusiastic, excited vision for yourself, for your life, for your highest self, what you can do then is you can start stepping into that each and every day by raising your standards. So that is going to be step 3. There's a step in between though. So now that we've created a vision for how we want to show up, like this highest version of ourselves. And here's a little side note is you don't have to change at all because she's already in you. You're just covering her up. You're either covering her up with layers of stories and identity that you've built based on what other people think you should be, or you're covering it up with armor, protecting yourself because at one point you were hurt and you're fearful to show your true authentic self again. So we create vision, and then we want to create awareness around our beliefs in our life. And this goes back to number 2 of the last podcast of radical self-honesty. Because beliefs are the ultimate catalyst for change. My friend Rachel Luna says, your values plus your beliefs equal your identity. And what I know to be true is oftentimes we say that we hold certain values, but our beliefs are very limiting and they're not matching our values. So the identity that we're producing is not of our highest self. It's more of our ego self, which is based in fear and doubt. And so if we can create awareness around the beliefs that we have, around where we want to go, how we want to show up, and the new standards that we want to create for our life, we can use them to our advantage because beliefs are the ultimate catalyst for change. You can do one of 3 things with them. You can hold them, you can challenge them, or you can simply change them. Now, let me give you an example of maybe a belief and a standard. So I know when our family was young and we were raising our kids, it was always, you wanted to keep your house really clean, right? I mean, not that I don't want to keep my house clean now or that people with kids don't want to keep their house clean. But at that time, I was really focused on cleaning up. So we would have dinner together, which I will be the first one to admit. Often I was thinking about work and I wasn't fully present. But we would be sitting down at the table together. My physical body was there. And then I would really worry about, getting all the dishes into the dishwasher. We taught everybody to do their own, to put that away, to clean up after dinner, to clean things up, constantly kind of like cleaning up every single day, instead of just keeping things picked up and then doing a deep cleaning once a week. And I sat and thought to myself, like, why do I do this? Why am I holding myself to this really high standard? Like, no one's going to be coming in with a white glove, like swiping the baseboards to see if they're dusty and then giving me an invisible gold star because they're cleaned off. And what it was doing, it was pulling my attention from, like, I couldn't have presence with my family. Not only was I thinking about work, but I was thinking about the cleaning or whatever I had to do afterwards. And I wasn't spending quality time with them. And so I started thinking about this, and growing up, this was a belief that my mom had, that things had to be a particular way. And I remember specifically her telling me it was my job or my chore to clean the kitchen. And there was one crumb. I missed a crumb on the counter. Yeah, you want to get all the crumbs off the counter and you want to be meticulous. But she would come back and she would say, now you have to redo the whole thing over again, making sure that I did it all over again. And it was like this belief that things had to be perfect or had to be a certain way, or else you weren't good enough. And so once I considered that, I thought, okay, what do I want to do with this belief? This is not a belief that I want to hold. I'd like to challenge this and see what else we could do. Now, at the same time, the kids were wanting to have allowance. And so we decided that we were going to break up all the household chores, because instead of me doing all the household chores on the weekend and taking away from our time together, we would break them up. The kids would get allowance. Everybody would be able to be more present with each other because everybody would be doing one of the smaller things. Someone would clean the bathroom, someone would clean the floors and vacuum, someone would have dog duty, walking the dog and picking up after the dog. And, everything would rotate. Someone would have the kitchen and everything would rotate. And then I had to be okay with it not being perfect though, right? Because I wasn't doing it all. And so once I was able to challenge that belief, then I could create a new standard. And the new standard was teaching my kids how to be resourceful and responsible and to take care of things and to take pride in things versus the standard of it having to be perfect. So I hope that's a good example for you of thinking about the standards that you have right now in your life and creating awareness around them. And then thinking about what the belief is that you have underneath it, because it is such an opportunity for each of us to use that as a catalyst to create something new in our life. Okay, so step 1, create the vision and start with your highest self first. Step 2, awareness around your current standards and the belief that's underneath them. Now, step 3, the fun part is creating the new standards. And the new standards should be directly aligned with this highest version of yourself. So something I think about is sleep. I used to put sleep as like the last thing. Everything else would come before sleep. And that's something that I highly do not recommend. I actually recommend sleep before almost everything else. And my old standard was make sure that you get absolutely everything done. And my belief was there's never enough time. And so I started challenging that belief and telling myself each day that there's plenty of time and money for everything. And then recognizing that I'm actually more effective and efficient and I can get more done. And I feel so much better and have so much more fun doing it. And I'm in so much more alignment when I get proper sleep. And then I started really thinking about like my measurement of success and my standard for my measurement of success. And so one of my standards for my measurement of success currently is, am I waking up each day with energy and enthusiasm, which can only happen if I get enough sleep. And that's a standard that I have for myself, usually no matter what. The last couple of weeks have been a small exception. It's the first time that I haven't pulled the grandma card, as I like to call it. But the grandma card just really means is other people may be choosing to stay up really late. And I like to go to bed. I like to go to bed so I can feel rested, so I can wake up and I can be in my highest self the next day. There's always exceptions to that. I'm not a black or white, good or bad, this or that person. I'm a both and. So there are exceptions, but normally my standard is getting 8 hours of sleep. Sometimes 9, depending on if it's right before my cycle of the month. Like I'll make it 9 because I just need a little bit more. And I know that about myself, but I wouldn't know that if I didn't become super self-aware and challenge and look at my beliefs and then start creating new standards for myself. something I used to write in my journal over and over again as I was creating and forming new relationships within my inner circle and then my other circles as well, like my business circle and that sort of thing in my community circle, was that I'm no longer available for people with disempowering beliefs or any toxic conversations. I just don't want to have those. I don't want to have conversations where we're complaining and blaming and being in a victim mentality anymore. And that's just a new standard that I created for myself. And by creating that new standard for myself, it attracted the people that I was really wanting to attract because I was only talking about more high vibrational things, dreams, goals, fun, laughing, joking, that sort of thing. So step 1, vision. Step 2, your awareness, your self-awareness around your current standards and your beliefs under them. Step 3, start creating new standards for yourself based on that vision that you've created. And then the last step, and you're always probably going to get this as a really good last step for me, or one of the last steps, is collect evidence and then adjust, because things change. And so start looking at the new standards that you're creating for yourself. And I highly, highly encourage you to write them down. Spend a few minutes in the morning or in the evening and reflect. What are my standards? How did I uphold my standards, yesterday? Or how am I going to today or earlier today? And how did that serve my highest self? And if it didn't, then you can adjust. Or maybe you tried something new. You're thinking like, that didn't really work for me, so I'm going to adjust it again. And you know what? That's totally fine too. So here are your steps for raising your standards in your life. Create a compelling vision for how you want to show up and where you want to go. Become super aware of your current standards, because most of the time we're borrowing them from maybe our parents or something that we learned growing up, and we don't even realize that it's ingrained with us because it's ingrained with a subconscious belief. So you have to dig into those beliefs. And those beliefs are your ultimate catalyst for change. You can hold them, you can challenge them, or you can change them. And then you have the exciting part, and you can start creating new standards for yourself and new standards for your life. And when you do this, it's really exciting because you can see like, wow, this is really working for me. And it's really helping me, because ultimately we should all be focusing on feeling good each and every day. And it's really helping you feel good. And then you can start collecting evidence and you can start adjusting and making modifications as needed based on what works for you in this current season of your life and your deepest priorities. So that's it for the podcast today. I'd love to hear from you on a new standard that you're creating from your life. So share it on Instagram and I will make sure to repost you, because when we share, you never know who you are inspiring. And lastly, as always, I just want to make sure that I am inviting you and you are joining me to be the one to show the world how truly great life can be. See you next week.